All right, welcome back to Mind Pump TV. We got a good one for you guys today. This is a video that we're gonna shoot that's regarding fat. This one is definitely near and dear to me because for at least 15 years of my fitness career, I avoided fat at all costs. I would stay away from it. Doug's cracking up right now because we got Justin over on the grill with the ButcherBox bacon right now.
That's
your resident grill master.
Yeah.
Oh, hey.
Flip that bad boy.
Yeah,
So,
we're doing it today.
I don't know about you, Sal, but I definitely subscribe to the low-fat type of diet. My entire eating career of working out, I was avoiding fat, eating lots of carbohydrates and a low-fat diet, afraid of the extra calories. I knew better that it wasn't going to that fat doesn't make you fat, but I definitely avoided it for the calories. And it wasn't until you got me to do the ketogenic diet did it really flip my whole macro profile forever.
Yeah, now ketogenic diet
this isn't dangerous at all, by the way.
No, there's nothing dangerous about that. Ketogenic diet is it's a more extreme type of diet, so we're not necessarily advocating for that at the moment. But when you're talking about fat, I mean, there's been a lot of information that we've been told for decades now about fat, how it's unhealthy, how it causes heart disease, how fat is what makes us fat. We need to avoid it. And so products started being produced that were all low fat. Everything was low fat. Trainers were told, teach your clients to go low fat.
Oh, I used to tell my clients to avoid oils, avoid butter, avoid fat at all costs because it'll naturally find its way into your diet.
Right.
So I was perpetuating this problem by pushing that out there and completely subscribed to the low fat type of eating. And I had a lot of success that way. So in my mind, I didn't think I needed to change until we went ketogenic. And we went so high fat, and it wasn't that, and I'm not a ketogenic eater right now, but what it showed me was, oh my God, I noticed my sustained energy levels, I noticed my skin, I noticed hair, and my food was 10 times better. It's a lot more fun to eat fat.
Well, let's keep this in mind. Of the 3 macronutrients that foods contain, proteins, fats, and carbohydrates, only 2 of them are essential. In other words, only 2 of them do you absolutely have to consume in your food, otherwise you will not survive, and that's protein and fat. Carbohydrates are, in fact, non-essential. In other words, you can go without carbohydrates for the rest of your life, and you'll probably be okay. You definitely won't die from not having carbohydrates. So that alone should give us a clue as to whether or not, in terms of are fats and proteins healthy, should we have them in our diet, and should we be consuming them? Don't be afraid of fat. You need fats for hormone production. You need fat for cell integrity. Fat is what it strengthens the immune system. Your brain needs fat. Now, are all fats created equal? Of course not. There are those fats you want to avoid. Typically, you want to stay away from the heavily processed vegetable oils. If you're going to consume a vegetable oil, it should be one that's very, very minimally processed, like olive oil, which just requires squeeze the olives
and
the
I know
oil comes
you
out.
say heavily processed, and I know we're over here frying up some bacon right now with Justin on the grill, but this is from ButcherBox, which is all
minimally processed.
Right, grass-fed and grass-finished, which a lot of people don't realize the importance of that also.
All of their beef is grass-fed and grass-finished. I know their bacon is vegetarian-fed, and it's also minimally processed. But when it comes to fat, look, here's the deal. More and more science now is coming out that is suggesting that the problem with modern lifestyle is not the overconsumption of fat, but rather the overconsumption of processed or heavily refined carbohydrates. Studies are showing that when people consume more fats and less of those carbohydrates, they tend to be healthier. And this isn't always true for everybody, but it seems to be generally true for most people.
Right, there's always exceptions to the rule. We know that there's going to be an individual variance with everybody, but for a majority of the clients that I've coached and helped, when I look at their diets, if I'm talking to a female, most of the women that I would help out when I assessed their diet, they were eating under 50 grams of fat for the entire day. A lot of the men that I was coaching and training, including myself, under 100 grams of fat a day. And that's just super low fat for their body. And it's such an essential macronutrient, and we're
delicious. How dare you?
Yeah, that's right. So what they're finding now is that saturated fats, probably not bad for you, probably neutral, depends on the context. So it's not the evil thing that we thought we were led to believe. Vegetable oils like canola oil, corn oil, soybean oil, probably not good for you, mainly because they're unstable at high temperatures. So when you cook with them, they degrade into inflammatory type fats and they cause inflammation of the body. Trans fats, definitely want to avoid them. But fats in their natural forms, for the most part, are very good. Now, of course, there are polymorphisms, in other words, people with genetic differences where They may need to avoid excessive saturated fats, but that's actually not super common. For most people, if your diet's relatively moderate to low in carbohydrates, you can eat a lot more fat than you thought you could, back in the day, and you'd be absolutely fine.
Well, now I've got a lot of clients too that when they're making this transition, they're really kind of scared and nervous to do that.
We've been brainwashed.
So I don't know if you have strategies. I have a strategy that I've given to my clients when they're transitioning from a higher carbohydrate type of a diet to a higher fat diet. And I would tell them to make your plates almost exactly the same as you always did, but start to target the protein first and then the fats next, and then the last, and then maybe some leafy greens, and then the last carbohydrates you're gonna hit is any sort of your like higher glycemic carbohydrates, like your rices, your pastas, anything like that. I would teach them to start to finish off on that, but because a lot of them would start with that meal. I mean, how often when every restaurant you go to starts you off with bread or chips. Avoid that, go after your protein and your fats first, try and fill up on that, and you'd be surprised how satiating good healthy fat is, and then you don't even tend to want that much carbohydrates.
That's right, you tend to eat less as a result. So low carbohydrate, high fat diets, when compared head to head to low fat diets, and when people have the freedom to eat as much as they want, that's important because when calories are controlled, there really is no difference in fat loss. But when people are just told, hey, you go low fat and you go low carb over here, the low carb group tends to end up eating less because fat and protein, especially protein, but fat as well, very satiating. When you eat a diet that's high in fat and relatively high in protein, you find that you just end up eating less. Whereas with carbohydrates, especially refined ones, you find yourself eating more and more and more.
For a long time, I used to get up and I'd start off every morning with this bowl of oatmeal, and I found myself hungry again 2 hours later. What is that about the carbohydrates that make me want to eat? Where now, if I start a day off with some bacon and eggs, I'm totally fine. I don't want to eat anything till like 2 o'clock or later in the afternoon. What is that?
Yeah, most of the blame goes to how it affects your blood sugar levels, which then affect insulin levels. So when you consume carbohydrates, if your blood sugar does go up, especially if it's a refined carbohydrate or sugar, blood sugar goes up quickly. The body releases insulin to get that sugar out of your blood and into other tissues, including fat and or maybe muscle. Blood sugar then drops very quickly, which then triggers a hunger response to try and bring that blood sugar back up. Now, fats and proteins don't cause that insulin, up and down thing to happen. So your appetite tends to be more controlled as a result.
Nice. So in other words, eat your fat.
Eat your fat. It's not bad for you. Stick to fats in their natural forms. Animal fats are typically okay for most people. Vegetable fats like olive oil or avocados, which is a fruit, those are fine in their natural forms. If you're gonna cook with fat, you wanna go with saturated fats. They stay stable at high temperatures. So lard, butter, coconut oil, those tend to be better options. And stay away from those heavily processed oils like canola oil or corn oil.
Vegetable oil.
Yeah, and those have inflammatory. They cause inflammatory reactions in the body, and they're probably never good for you. So I would say avoid those.
So as long as you are a meat eater, would you say that meat's probably one of the best sources to get not only fat, but you're also getting some protein along the way too?
Oh, meat is absolutely fine. Fish, meat, fowl, absolutely fine. Of course, where you source it does make a little bit of a difference. So when beef is grass-fed and grass-finished, tends to have a better fatty acid profile, tends to be higher in the types of fatty acids that are better for your body and lower in the ones that are not as good for your body. And of course, fish typically has great healthy fats in them. There's no debate there.
Which this is why we're big fans of the ButcherBox, which Justin's growing up there baking, but they do all kinds of
very high quality meat. Some of the best meat you can find.
Meat.
Excellent.
Yeah, one thing I took from you, Sal, too, with when I grill vegetables or I saute vegetables, is to add an excess amount of olive oil as well to then be able to kind of build up more fat in my diet.
Oh yeah. Oh, olive oil is one of the best, most healthiest fats, and you don't want to cook with olive oil. It's not a saturated fat, so it isn't stable at high temperatures. But you just pour that on things afterwards and eat it just like that. And it's one of the, every study ever done, it's shown incredible health benefits. But yeah, don't be afraid of fat. Be afraid of certain kinds of fat and certain kinds of carbohydrates. But otherwise, fats are essential. Go for it.
I'm ready to eat that stuff, Justin. Let's do this.
If you have any questions, put them in the comments below. Subscribe to this channel and share this video with your friends who are afraid of fat. They will learn something.
And eat it right in front of them.